Welcome to Better Together podcast from the ministry of Kellie Baptist Church, a podcast about the local church, the kingdom, and the gospel.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Better Together podcast. My name is Tyler Pendergrass. I'm the host of this podcast, and we're so excited to have you guys with us again here today. With me today is someone I've known for a long time. I'm excited to have him with us on the podcast. She's actually on staff here at Kellie. She is the Children's Ministry and Communications Director. It is Kellie Bales. Kellie, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Awesome. Good. How's your week been?
So far, so good. Yeah, it's been a crazy week, but yeah, it's been great.
Okay, awesome. Well, to get things started, typically what we do is just have people share their story and how they came to faith. So why don't you share your story with us?
Yeah, so I grew up in a family that really valued going to church, and they tried their best to raise me in a Christian home. And then life just kind of happened. I started taking part of like a travel soccer team, and so we were gone a lot on the weekends, and so then church became less of a priority. But I was always going to vacation Bible schools, and I was one of those kids that was like a serial responder. Like I would always like, just in case.
Yeah.
And yeah, so but I thought Christianity was more about behavior modification than heart transformation. And so it wasn't actually until I was a junior in high school, and we were coming back from a volleyball game, and I just found out that my mom had a brain meningioma. And it was a very particularly like hard year for me. Mm-hmm. And just in that car ride, I just knew I couldn't do this by myself. And so I prayed and repented. And yeah, from that moment, that's my salvation story there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And you know, the story is a little similar to the fact that like I wouldn't consider myself a serial responder at a VBS, but I could think there's probably at least, a couple times like I can remember meeting at a VBS and responding and thinking like, oh, okay, I'm good now. And I remember like, because I grew up in church too. My parents, they kept me in church, and I was like, well, I feel like I'm saved now, but my parents already thought I was saved, like I'd already been baptized. Yeah. So I remember telling, it was actually Pastor Jason when he was at another VBS, and I was like, I don't really want to tell my parents. And he was like, well, how serious of a decision is this if you don't want to tell anybody? So, and like you, I came to faith later on in high school as well. So I understand some of that and how that can be. But so how long have you been going here to Kellie?
So we actually started coming in 2013. So we found out about my mom's meningioma in October. And we had some family friends that worshiped here. And so they invited us to a wild game feast. Mm-hmm. And after that, you get free food. And so we're like, okay, we have to come to church on a Sunday, it's like a thank you almost.
Yeah, like obligated to come.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so we ended up coming and didn't leave. And so that December of that year, myself, my brother, my sister, and my dad all got baptized here. And yeah, that's been it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, it's a longer time. So Children's Ministry and Communications Director.
Yes.
So when did you know exactly like feeling a call to Children's Ministry?
So I wouldn't actually like call it like a call. Because basically, so I always loved kids. Right. I was always with them. And then since my salvation, I had a deep love for God and His Word and for teaching others. But I thought that I could do that in other avenues. And so I was an intern. I started out as an intern here. In the last 6 months of my internship, I kind of operated in the children's ministry role because there was a vacancy there, and just helping and so you would think it would be like pretty simple, like, okay, you love God and you love kids, like this is a perfect job. But right. It really came down to a point where I was just trying to build my kingdom instead of the Lord's. And so it was something that I had to explain to my family a lot, because in their minds I was still like set on becoming a doctor. Right. And a doctor is a little bit more like lucrative, I guess. Yeah. And so, but I couldn't deny the doors that were just opening with this. And then also just the sense of peace that I felt, especially after I laid down, my agenda. And so that's kind of how that came about.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that was a tough conversation because we were already in school at the time pursuing medical stuff. And
yeah. So I was, at this time I was going to Western. I pre-med concentration, chemistry minor, and was really just like in the heaps of it all. And so, and it was one of those things where I was like, okay, like being a doctor in some ways was going to be easier for me, felt, because you had like set times whenever you were leaving. So
Right.
it was like more of like a 9 to 5, and then you were going to be on call maybe once. And ministry is not like that. Ministry is kind of like all the time.
Right.
And then it's also just hard because you're with people, and just like the raw emotions of it all, and people are hurting, and the church is a good place for people who are hurting to come. And so trying to not bear that weight, I guess, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
and still be effective.
No, for sure that does. And, I know that those can be kind of scary when you're making those big decisions, especially like career altering. And obviously, it's cool that it worked out. God
Yeah,
has a plan
absolutely.
for things. And
Absolutely.
I think our kids benefit from it as well, from the direction that you have. And it's cool to see how we've grown, especially because we went to high school together. It's cool to see just like how far we've all come. And
Yeah, total 180 for sure.
yeah, how different it is, and how it's cool to see how God's worked.
Absolutely. And it's crazy because you can look back and you can just, it's just kind of like mind blowing, because it's like, okay, it was so evident like all along, like this was his plan. And it's such a blessing. And so I'm incredibly grateful for the church and just my role here and the opportunity to serve.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we're grateful for you too. So, with the different jobs that you have, what does a typical work week look like for you?
Not typical. It's actually, so I start out Mondays is very like we call it a deep work day. And so that's the day that I'm doing volunteer scheduling, administrative tasks. And so we have some weekly publications that come out via email, doing social media graphics, sermon graphics, just kind of going down the list of all the things. And then if we have an actual publication that we're printing, I'll start working on that as well. And so Mondays is me just trying to get most of my administrative tasks just kind of taken care of. So the rest of the week I can really, whatever pops up, I can handle. But yeah, so it's, yeah.
Okay. And then Sunday mornings, I know you're kind of like all over the place. So what does a typical Sunday look like?
So we get here, I help open up Kingdom Kids with Tom. And then, yeah, basically if we have kids at the 8:45 service, we're serving back there typically. And then if we have to do any type of like announcements and stuff, we kind of run around and I try to be available to help wherever. When I started coming to Cowie, I started serving in the AV crew. And so, if there's any help, which is very, very limited now, but yeah, just trying to help wherever I can, really.
Okay, cool. So my kids, they love going to Kingdom Kids whenever we show up. Like on Wednesdays, they can't go till a certain time. As soon as we get here, they're like, my son Elliot's like, Dad, I want to go to Kingdom Kids. I want to go to Kingdom Kids. So obviously, like I know from my children's experience that they have a great time. So what do our kids typically like on a Sunday? What does that look like for a child that's going to be in Kingdom Kids?
Yeah, so both of our services are the same. For the 11 o'clock, we typically have more kids, and so we have more classrooms open. And so every child comes in, depending on their age, we try to tailor it to their age somewhat. And so they either have a coloring page or like they go and play, and just kind of that calm down period as kids are getting put into the classrooms and a lot of changes happening. Just something that's super relaxed. And then we go into a snack time. And then after snack, we show a video. And so Tom does a great job on our Kingdom Kids videos. They're super entertaining and awesome. Yeah, like
for sure.
Even adults will comment like these videos are great. They're fantastic. And so we'll play the video, and then after that, play some games, try to go into deeper conversation, and really we just try to value relationship with the kids, and so getting them comfortable, and so they can ask us questions. Because these kids have the craziest questions, and oftentimes you're like, okay, that's really good. I will come back to that. Because you're going to have to go back to the Bible and research it and commentaries and everything. But yeah, so that's a typical Sunday. And then afterwards, not many kids want to actually leave Kingdom Kids, but we completely understand.
Yeah, I understand that as well. I'm like, my kids, they don't want to leave. And those videos that Tom make that you mentioned, like my son loves those. Like we were watching, we put on the TV for something one night, and we went to YouTube, went to Cowie's page, and I'd done something with the youth. So I was one of the videos, like you could see me on screen, and Elliot looked and he was like, oh, Dad, that's you. And then he was like, but there's Mr. Tom, and he
Yeah.
got like so excited.
It's crazy.
So
Yeah, he's done a great job with that for sure.
absolutely. But okay, so yeah, and then for the curriculum that you guys do, so what's the thought process behind that, and do you pick the curriculum? And
Yeah, so it's actually something that we've been doing for a while, and it works really well. So the Gospel Project takes kids throughout the entire Bible in the process of 3 years, and so it's really in depth and great. And our Sunday school actually uses the same curriculum, but they don't do the videos, and so it's a little bit different. Where by the end, if a kid goes to a service and a Sunday school, they're getting the same story. Oftentimes, they don't even realize it because it's given in different ways.
right.
And so, really, they leave having the more in-depth understanding of the actual lesson. And so, yeah, it's a great resource, and we love them. And yeah.
Okay, awesome. A lot of people that tend to leave their kids at church. Whenever you leave your kids with somebody, you want to know like what security protocols go on and how safe everything is. So, what are some precautions that we take here at Cowie?
Yeah. So Kingdom Kids is it's definitely the hardest team to serve on.
Right.
And we have that by design. We're very cautious. And so to be a Kingdom Kids team member, you first have to go to church here regularly for 6 months. And so after 6 months, if you're wanting to serve, we have a volunteer application form that every volunteer has to fill out. It starts with a background check, and then there's also reference material. And so basically we ask for like references and go in through like an in-depth training. And then whenever all that is checked off and it's great, whenever you actually come on to serve, we do an in-depth training. Each Kingdom Kids room has 2 adults. They all have security cameras as well. And then we also have a security guard and check-in desk that go in and regularly check. And so we're definitely very precautious and have a lot of precautions.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. It's definitely, Kingdom Kids is the best team to serve on, but it's also not the easiest that you can just kind of onboard on right away. And that's by design. And that's just because we really care about the vulnerability of our kids. And
For sure. Yeah, I mean, you never know with such a crazy
Absolutely.
world that we live
It's
in.
insane, yes.
So it's cool those precautions that we take, to ensure the safety of our children, and then going through training and stuff like that too. 'Cause kids are so impressionable.
Absolutely.
We want to make sure that we're teaching them correct truths and.
Absolutely. So,
Well, that's news. I knew some of those things as a parent, but I'm sure for some of our listeners that maybe haven't taken their kids yet, it's comforting to hear that we take that seriously, their safety and their, what they learn about the scriptures to make sure that's
Absolutely.
accurate.
yeah. Serious business for sure.
So we're a couple weeks, I guess it's a couple months now away from VBS
Yeah.
that we did this past year. So I know that's it's a big job for you. You take on a lot of responsibilities and planning and things like that. So what does it look like to plan a VBS?
Okay. So VBS planning, so it's during the summer, it's Vacation Bible School. But we actually get curriculum in December. And so we just kind of look and just start praying really over Vacation Bible School. And so at the start of the year, you start asking volunteers right away and just kind of planning for that. The rotation stuff, we've really gotten it down to a science pretty much,
Right.
with just the ease of getting, kindergartners from one place to another as seamlessly as we possibly can. And so, after all the volunteers, curriculum's all out, we have a VBS meeting and really just let the teachers and the guides know what all is going to be happening. And so, it's actually like my first VBS, it was a whirlwind of everything. And now it's kind of like I've relaxed a little bit in it to where I'm like, okay, this is, and really there was one VBS where the actual theme of it was super hard because it's not something you can really decorate for.
Yeah.
And I just had this realization that it's not about the decorations or, the bounce houses and stuff. The Lord, if we were just under a mango tree, he would make his presence known. And so
Absolutely.
that's basically just, we're going to come at it just with a prayerful heart, that the Lord would just be with us and that he would call kids to him. And that's the main point. And so we just
For
try to
sure.
take care of all the other stuff and make sure it goes as seamless as we can. And Vacation Bible School always has something. And so we kind of have like this unspoken rule. It's like, blessed are the flexible. Like,
Yeah.
we'll just work it out. It'll be fine. But yeah.
Yeah, okay, awesome. He said I would assume that would be a tall task, so it's cool that you have done a couple of those, got those under your belt, so it's not as stressful.
Yeah. I mean, it still is stressful. Like
Yeah.
the week leading up to VBS, not many people can talk to me because I'm just like so many things and there's always something that happens. But we have a really good staff and a really good team that they really help carry that weight as well. And then our volunteer team is just spectacular. So
Oh, absolutely.
it makes everything a lot simpler when you have good people.
For sure, yeah, and just the different side of things like AV and things like that, seeing all the different volunteers that come together. I feel like God's really blessed us here at Cowie.
Absolutely.
Got a lot of great volunteers, faithful volunteers willing to come and serve, and
Yep.
yeah, just awesome group of people.
Absolutely. Yeah. It feels like a family, and it really is.
It does.
I feel like if there's a need, the whole body is just really quick to address that. And it's something that you don't see a whole lot of places. And we church hopped for a while. And so it's nice, just coming to a family, and it makes it, I wouldn't say easier, but it's also like just simpler maybe.
Right.
Like to serve because other people are serving with you. So.
For sure, yeah, and then you build that sense of community with the volunteers. So it's like, when you schedule somebody to do something, to show up, that they will, and you know that they'll have positive attitude when they do, and they'll do a great job.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
Cowie's just always felt like home for me as well.
Yeah, it's great.
So that's awesome. Thank you again for doing all that with the VBSs, and I've been thankful to be a part of those, and it's been cool to see some conversations that we've had, and hearing some of those questions, like you mentioned, the Getting Kingdom Kids, like they have some pretty tough questions
absolutely.
sometimes.
Yeah, like where do they even come up with like some of these things? Yeah, I mean that's one thing where I was kind of shocked because it's like, all right, you're teaching first and second graders, like how hard can it be? And then they just come out with something that's like this great theological debate that people are having. It's like, all right, well, but yeah, it's fantastic.
Well, that's awesome. So, I guess how can we be praying for you in your role here at Cowie?
I mean, I guess like just, praying for family and, it's just really cool, to just see how like people have already kind of come, and prayed like with my family and stuff with my mom's, recent health stuff. But I definitely think just for the ministry, just for the gospel to go forth and, for kids to come to the gospel, for lost people, Kingdom Kids is a really great way for parents, to come and, when you're caring for their kid, they kind of respect you and well, not say listen, but they will share what they're struggling with, and there's a lot of families that are hurting, and just praying for them, and
Okay.
yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, we'll be praying for that. And you mentioned there for a second about your mom. I know that's a pretty powerful story. Do you want to share some of that here a little bit, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. So it's been 2 years now. She had like this rare spinal aneurysm that ruptured, and she had a series of strokes and brain hemorrhages and just craziness. And it's weird how parallel it was to when we first found out about her brain meningioma, which was completely unrelated. My family was all just kind of like scared and like, what are we gonna do? And then with this, it was so different because my family, we all had a peace because we had the Lord. And so it was still like scary in moments, but the way that our church family just kind of encompassed us and prayed for us and were with us. There's numerous times where my dad and I were in UNC, and we're just like, we don't see how people can do this, one, without God, but two, without a church family. But yeah, she is an absolute miracle. She's able to walk. She can talk normally, which people that have had numerous strokes typically don't. They have some delay, and she's a little weak on her left side, but I mean, she's swimming laps of the pool, and she's just an absolute
That's
testament
awesome.
to the miracles of God. Yeah, it's crazy. But Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. It's just cool to see how God's faithful, and how He blesses us, and to see from where she was to the steps she's taken now, and
Yeah.
they volunteer in Kingdom Kids too. I know my daughter. She loves your mom.
Yeah.
And your dad too.
Yeah.
So-
They're great. And I mean, they used to serve. So part of being like the children's ministry, director, is your whole family gets involved,
Right.
whether they know it or not. But yeah, they've always been super faithful to serve, and yeah, they do fantastic, and they are always willing to help out, and
Yeah.
so
That's
super
awesome.
grateful for them.
Thankful for you and your family, and then your husband Ethan too.
Yes.
Got to serve with him some with our youth group and small group settings, and it's always cool to hear his input and his his take on things. And
Yeah, he's super cool.
yeah, I'm sure you think so. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the best for sure.
So well, awesome. Well, Kelly, thanks for sitting down today.
Thank you.
Guys, we're gonna wrap up this episode. You can find all of our episodes of the Better Together podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and then we'll also have video versions up on our YouTube channel. So thank you guys. Hope you guys have a great week. God bless.